The storm had rolled in fast that night. Thunder cracked above the small town of Ashbury, Maine, rattling the windows of every old house that lined the narrow streets. Rain fell in sheets, coating the pavement with a dark sheen. It was the kind of night that made most people lock their doors, draw the curtains, and pray the power didn't go out. But Emily Carter wasn't most people. Emily was 26, ambitious, and newly relocated to Ashbury from Boston after landing her first teaching job at the local high school. She had always dreamed of small-town life, quiet streets, historic houses, a community where everyone knew your name. When she signed the lease for her new apartment, a charming but slightly run-down second floor of a Victorian house on Ashbury Lane, she felt like her life was finally beginning. Yet something about that house unsettled her. The staircase creaked with every step. The wallpaper in the hallway peeled back like shedding skin. And though the landlady, Mrs. Whitaker, had insisted the unit was fully furnished, it contained very little besides a bed, a table, and one peculiar item in the bedroom. A mirror. It was tall, nearly 7 feet, framed in dark wood, carved with swirling designs that looked almost like faces if you stared long enough. The glass wasn't cracked, but it seemed to clear, almost alive, as if the surface were more than a reflection. Emily had assumed it was an antique left behind by some previous tenant, but when she asked Mrs. Whitaker about it, the woman only frowned. "Oh, that thing. Best to leave it be. It's been here longer than I have." Emily laughed it off, though the answer chilled her. What kind of landlady didn't know where a piece of furniture came from? That first night, the storm raged until nearly 2 a.m. Emily tossed and turned in bed, the shadows from the lightning flickering across her walls. Each time she turned her head, her eyes landed on the mirror. She couldn't shake the feeling it was watching her. Finally, unable to sleep, she got up and walked toward it. Her reflection stared back, pale, tired, strands of brown hair sticking to her face. But something about the image seemed delayed. When she tilted her head, the reflection followed just a fraction of a second too late. She blinked. No, that couldn't be right. Emily leaned closer. Her breath fogged the glass. She lifted her hand and pressed her fingertips against the cold surface for a heartbeat. She swore she felt pressure pushing back, like another hand meeting hers from the other side. Her stomach twisted. She pulled away quickly and laughed nervously at herself. "Get a grip, Emily," she whispered. "It's just a damn mirror." But that night, sleep never came. The following morning, she was greeted by the town's autumn sunlight and the smell of rain-soaked leaves. She shook off her unease and told herself it had only been nerves. A new place, an old house, made sense. She'd spooked herself. Still, when she looked at the mirror in the daylight, something was wrong. Her reflection looked fine, perfectly normal, but the wooden frame, its carved designs, seemed sharper than before, more distinct. She could have sworn that where there had once been swirls, she now saw eyes. Tiny eyes, hidden in the wood, staring right at her. She stepped closer, running her fingers over the carvings. They were smooth, impossibly smooth, as if untouched by time. No dust, no cracks. Almost new. Her phone buzzed, startling her. It was her best friend from Boston, Rachel, checking in. "Settling in, okay?" The text read. Emily typed back quickly. "Yeah, place is great, just old. And there's this weird mirror, lol." Rachel sent back a ghost emoji. Emily smirked. If only it were that simple. That night, the scratching began. It was faint at first, like nails brushing against wood. Emily froze in bed, listening. The sound was coming from the bedroom wall. No, not the wall, the mirror. She sat up, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the tall, looming glass across the room. The scratching grew louder, more insistent, like something clawing from inside. Then silence. Emily waited, holding her breath. The mirror reflected her dimly lit room. The shadows swayed. Her own reflection sat on the edge of the bed, eyes wide, but she hadn't moved. She was still lying down. Her blood ran cold. Slowly, carefully, she shifted under the blanket. The reflection didn't follow. It just sat there, smiling, a smile that wasn't hers. Emily screamed, grabbing her phone and snapping on the flashlight. The beam hit the glass hand. The reflection was gone. Just her terrified pale face, staring back. She wanted to smash it right then. Wanted to drag it out into the street and leave it in the rain. But when she tried to move it, it wouldn't budge. It was heavy, far heavier than wood and glass should be. Almost as if it were bolted to the floor. Shaking, Emily climbed back into bed, pulling the covers tight. She didn't sleep, not a second, and when morning came, she noticed something else. Her face in the mirror looked different. Not older, not younger, just off, as though tiny details were slipping, shifting. Her eyes were a little too dark, her smile a little too sharp, and when she turned away, just before leaving the room, she could have sworn her reflection did in single quotes. Emily tried to convince herself she had imagined it all. The mirror wasn't alive. It wasn't watching her. It wasn't smiling. She told herself she'd been exhausted, that moving and adjusting to a new job had left her vulnerable to nightmares. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. At school, Emily struggled to focus. The students at Ashbury High whispered about their creepy new teacher who stared at the windows too long. She caught herself zoning out during class. The reflection in the polished blackboard, pulling her attention away from the students. In front of her, her colleagues were polite, but distant. The only one who really tried to talk was Mr. Daniels, the history teacher. He was in his 40s, tall, with a warm but cautious smile. Settling in okay, Ms. Carter? He asked one afternoon in the teacher's lounge. Emily hesitated. She wanted to say no, not really, that something in her apartment was wrong. Instead, she forced a smile. Yeah, just getting used to the quiet. Daniels chuckled. Quiet can be the hardest part of this town. Some folks don't last more than a year. When she asked why, his smile faltered. Old houses, old stories. Ashbury's full of them. You'll hear them soon enough. Emily wanted to press him for details, but he quickly changed the subject. That night, she came home to find her bedroom colder than the rest of the apartment. The mirror loomed, taller than ever, almost as though it had grown. She avoided looking at it as she undressed, but when she slipped into bed, the air thickened with silence. Her heart pounded. Against her will, her gaze drifted back to the glass. Her reflection stood there, still, watching. She rolled over, squeezing her eyes shut. But the scratching began again, slow, deliberate. Nails dragging along glass. Emily whipped around with her phone light. Nothing. The mirror reflected only her shaking hand and pale face. Then whispers, faint, indistinct, like voices carried through water. They slithered from the mirror, filling the room. She pressed her hands to her ears, but the words seeped into her skull. Let us out. Her throat tightened. She stumbled forward and shouted, Who's there? The whispers stopped. The surface of the mirror rippled. Just for a second, though something beneath had moved. Emily backed away until her shoulders hit the wall. The next day, she called Rachel. You sound like hell, Rachel said over the phone. You're not sleeping, are you? There's something wrong with this place, Emily whispered. The mirror, Rachel, it's not normal. It's God. I don't even know how to explain it. I think it's alive. Rachel sighed. It's an old mirror, antique. You're stressed. You just moved. You started a new job. You're living alone for the first time. No, Emily snapped, her voice cracking. It's not in my head. It smiles when I don't. It scratches. And last night, it whispered to me. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, Rachel said softly, you need to get rid of it. Emily swallowed hard. I tried. It won't move. It's like it's fixed there. Another pause. Then maybe you need to talk to someone in town. Ask about it. I don't know. But don't let it eat you alive, okay? Promise me. Emily didn't answer, because in that moment, standing in her living room with the phone pressed to her ear, she saw movement in the hallway, a flicker, a shadow. She turned her head slowly. The mirror was leaning out of her bedroom door. It had never been in the hallway. Before her phone slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor, the mirror now stood only a few feet away, tall and looming, its surface shimmering faintly. Inside the glass, her reflection stared, but its lips were moving, whispering words Emily couldn't hear. She froze, paralyzed with terror, every instinct screaming to run, but her legs wouldn't move. And then just as suddenly it was gone. When she blinked, the hallway was empty. The mirror was back in her bedroom, exactly where it had always been. Emily collapsed against the wall, trembling. She wasn't losing her mind. No, something far worse was happening. The mirror wasn't just reflecting her anymore. It was following her. Emily didn't open her bedroom door for hours after the hallway incident. She sat on the living room couch with every light on, clutching a mug of cold coffee, listening, but nothing came. The silence in the apartment was almost worse than the whispers. When the sun finally rose, she dressed in yesterday's clothes, left the apartment without brushing her teeth, and walked straight to Ashbury High. She had made a decision. If anyone knew about the town's history, the stories, the rumors, it was Mr. Daniels. She caught him in his classroom during his free period. The smell of chalk dust lingered in the air, and history books covered his desk in uneven piles. "Ms. Carter," Daniels greeted, adjusting his glasses. "You look tired." Emily shut the door behind her. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." His expression shifted, cautious. "All right. There's this mirror," she began, her voice shaky. "Tall, wooden frame, old, maybe antique. My landlady said it's been in my apartment longer than she's been alive. Do you know anything about it?" Daniels leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then he said softly, "Ashbury has always had stories about mirrors." Emily's stomach nodded. Daniels continued, "There's an old folktale, late 1800s, maybe. A shipwreck off the coast brought a trader's cargo here. Among the goods was a Venetian mirror, massive, ornate. People said it was cursed, that anyone who owned it began to wither away. They called it the widow's glass." Emily swallowed. "Why?" "Because the first recorded owner, a woman named Abigail Horn, claimed she could see her dead husband in the reflection. She became obsessed, stopped eating, stopped leaving her house. When they found her, she was sitting in front of the mirror, a skeleton draped in a wedding gown." Emily shuddered. Daniel's voice dropped lower. "The mirror passed from family to family. Each time, someone vanished, or aged unnaturally. Eventually, people stopped taking it. They say it chooses its place now, moves on its own, appears where it wants to." Emily's hands trembled. "That's impossible." Daniels gave her a long, steady look. "Then why are you asking me about it?" She had no answer. That night, Emily armed herself with courage, or as much courage as 2 glasses of cheap red wine could give her. She entered her bedroom slowly, flashlight in hand. The mirror stood in its usual place, waiting. "Why me?" she whispered. Her reflection mouthed the words back, but delayed. The lips moved slower, as if savoring the question. She forced herself to step closer. Every nerve screamed to run, but she needed to know. Her fingertips brushed the glass. It was colder than ice, so cold it burned. Then a flicker. For an instant, the reflection wasn't hers. It was another woman's face, pale, hollow, with blackened eyes. Her lips moved, whispering words Emily couldn't hear. Emily staggered back, gasping. "Who are you?" The woman in the mirror pressed her palms. against the glass. Her mouth opened wider, and then Emily heard it faint, stretched, distorted, but unmistakable. "Help me." The lights in the apartment flickered violently. The air turned suffocating. Emily screamed and bolted from the room, slamming the door. Behind her, she didn't sleep that night. She sat on the living room floor with the TV on mute, every lamp burning, waiting for dawn at some point. She drifted into a shallow, restless doze, and in her dream, if it was a dream, she was back, in her bedroom. The mirror towered over her, bigger than ever, its glass rippling like water, dozens of pale faces pressed against the other side. Men, women, children, all silently screaming. Emily woke with a jolt, drenched in sweat. The sun was rising, and from her bedroom, faint but clear, came the sound of someone tapping on glass. Tap, 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 tap. The tapping didn't stop. Emily sat frozen on the couch, blanket wrapped tight around her shoulders, her eyes locked on the closed bedroom door. Tap, tap. It was deliberate, measured, not random. Someone or something wanted her attention. Finally, trembling, she stood. She crept toward the door, each floorboard groaning under her weight. Her hand hovered over the knob. The tapping ceased. Silence. Her pulse roared in her ears. With a shaky breath, she pushed the door open. The bedroom was dark, the morning light, blocked by heavy clouds. The mirror stood where it always did, tall and patient, and there, on the inside of the glass, were fingerprints, dozens of them, pressed from the other side. Emily's throat closed. She staggered back, nearly tripping, over the rug. The prints began to fade, melting into the surface until the glass was flawless again. Then movement. The same woman she had glimpsed before appeared. This time, clearer. A thin, gaunt figure draped in what looked like a tattered wedding dress, the lace stained yellow with age. Her eyes were deep hollows, her lips cracked and bleeding. Emily's voice shook. "Who are you?" The woman pressed her face to the glass. Her mouth moved slowly, painfully. Emily strained to hear. The whisper seeped into her skull like smoke. "Emily." Her knees buckled. "You know my name." The woman nodded. And then, in a single distorted gasp, "Trade." Emily shook her head violently. No, I don't know what that means. Leave me alone." The woman's mouth stretched into a grotesque grin. And the glass cracked. A single line ran down the mirror's surface, with a sound like ice splitting on a frozen lake. The temperature in the room dropped instantly, her breath fogging in the air. From the crack seeped mist, dark, oily, writhing like smoke. It spilled into the room, curling around Emily's ankles. Cold as death. She screamed, stumbling backward, kicking at the mist. But it clung to her skin like tar, burning cold, pulling her toward the mirror. The glass rippled. The woman inside reached out her hand, pressing through the surface. Fingers long and skeletal, dripping with black liquid. Emily shrieked and grabbed the nearest thing, her bedside lamp. With all her strength, she hurled it at the mirror. The lamp shattered. Sparks flew, and the mirror, healed, the cracks sealed. The woman vanished. The mist evaporated. Only Emily remained, sobbing on the floor, surrounded by broken glass. That night, she left every light in the apartment blazing. She tried music, the TV, anything to drown out the silence. But no matter what she did, her eyes kept drifting back to the bedroom door. She couldn't bring herself to enter. At 3:12 a.m., her phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. She hesitated before opening it. It was a photo of her, asleep in bed. Emily's blood turned to ice. She hadn't slept in her bed since the mirror incident. And yet, there she was, lying in the exact position she always had, mouth slightly open, hair across her face. She dropped the phone. Her stomach heaved. A soft creak came from the bedroom. Her head whipped toward the sound. The door was open. She knew she had left it shut from the shadows inside. The woman's whisper slithered out. clear and sharp this time. Emily didn't sleep. She couldn't. The photo on her phone still glared at her from the cracked screen, her body lying in bed, peaceful, vulnerable. But she hadn't been in that bed, not once since the mirror had reached through. She had paced her living room until sunrise. Blinds drawn, every muscle in her body wired tight. The word haunted her. Trade. What did it mean? Trade what? Trade with whom? At school, Emily could barely hold herself together. The students' chatter blurred into meaningless noise. She kept glancing at the windows, terrified she might see her reflection lag again, or smile when she didn't. At lunch, she cornered Mr. Daniels again. "I need more," she said, voice shaking, about the mirror, about the people who had it before. He studied her for a long moment, and then motioned for her to close the classroom door. "When I was a boy," Daniels began, "my grandmother used to warn us never to look into mirrors too long. She said they were door-thin glass, keeping something darker out. But she told one story in particular, about a neighbor woman, middle-aged, kind. One day, she bought an antique mirror from a traveling dealer. Weeks later, she changed, stopped, leaving her home. Neighbors said she was trading time with the thing in the glass. Every day she looked younger, prettier. But her husband, he began to wither. He aged and fat." Emily's stomach churned. What happened to her? Daniel's expression darkened. One night, he vanished. She was found sitting in front of the mirror, smiling like she'd won some prize. But when she caught her own reflection, she screamed, because it wasn't her anymore. It was him, trapped inside. Emily clutched her arms, trying to stop the shaking. Daniels lowered his voice. "When you said your landlady told you it had been there longer than she'd been alive, that tracks. The mirror stays. People don't." That evening, Emily searched the town library, combing through brittle newspapers and dusty archives. The deeper she dug, the more the pattern emerged. Strange disappearances. Deaths, cases of sudden aging all tied to a mirror. The most disturbing discovery was a photograph from 1911. It showed a woman in a veil, standing in a parlor, smiling, faintly. Behind her, on the wall, was the mirror. Even through the faded sepia image, Emily recognized it instantly. The same carved frame, the same too clear glass. But there was something else in the photo. The woman's reflection didn't match. Well, she smiled for the camera. Her reflection inside the mirror was screaming. Emily shoved the photo back into the folder, bile rising in her throat. That night, she returned to the apartment with a plan. Cover the mirror, starve it of her gaze. She yanked a sheet from the closet and threw it over the frame. The fabric clung unnaturally, as though the mirror itself resisted being hidden, but she forced it to stay. For the first time in days, she sat on the couch without looking toward the bedroom. She almost felt relief, almost, until the scratching began again, slow, deliberate, dragging claws against glass. Her eyes darted to the bedroom door. She clenched her fists. "No," she whispered. "You don't get to win." The scratching grew louder. The sheet shifted, pulled from the inside. Emily stood, every nerve screaming to run, but rage surged in her chest. She stormed into the bedroom, grabbed a chair by her desk, and jammed it against the covered mirror. The sheet bulged outward. Something pressed against it from within. Emily screamed and threw herself against the chair, holding it in place. "Leave me alone." For a moment, silence. Then the voice came, muffled through the sheet, clear and cold. "Trade." Emily stumbled back. The sheet slipped to the floor. The mirror was uncovered again, and in it, she saw herself not standing in the room, but sitting in her bed, peaceful, smiling, as though she'd already agreed. By Thursday morning, Emily looked hafted. Her skin was pale, her eyes bruised from sleepless nights, her hands trembling as she poured her morning coffee. She hadn't stepped foot inside the bedroom since the last incident, but the mirror's presence leaked through the walls, pressing into her skull no matter where she went. She was starting to believe. Daniels was Ashbury, had kept its stories buried for a reason, and she was next in line. At noon, her phone rang. Rachel's voice crackled over the line. "You sound awful. I'm coming up there." "No," Emily said quickly, panic flaring. "No, you don't understand. You can't." But Rachel had already made up her mind. Too late. "I'll be there tonight. I'm not letting you go through whatever this is alone." Emily's chest clenched. Relief fought with dread. If Rachel came here, she'd see, she'd know. And maybe she'd never leave. Rachel arrived just after sunset, her old Honda crunching over the gravel driveway. She climbed out with her usual confidence, blonde hair pulled into a messy bun, jacket slung over her arm, duffel bag on her shoulder. When Emily opened the door, Rachel's smile faltered. "Jesus, Em, you look like you haven't slept in a week." "I haven't." Emily's voice cracked. "I told you not to come." Rachel stepped inside anyway, brushing past her. "Well, too bad. You've officially lost mirror privileges. I'm here to help." Emily froze at the word. "Don't say that." Rachel frowned. "What? Mirror ma'am? What the hell is going on?" Emily tried to explain. She told Rachel about the whispers, the scratching, the faces, about the word trade, about the photo of herself asleep. Rachel listened in silence, her expression caught between concern and disbelief. Finally, she said, "Okay, show me." Emily's stomach turned. "No, I can't. If this thing is real, I need to see it. If it's not, then you need me to prove it's not." Against her better judgment, Emily led her to the bedroom. The mirror stood there, innocent as always, tall and gleaming in the lamplight. Rachel crossed her arms. "That's it," Emily whispered. "Don't get close." Rachel ignored her. She stepped right up to the glass, peering at her reflection. She leaned in, squinting. "It's just a mirror, Em." But then her smile faltered. "What the?" Her hand rose slowly, unbidden, as though something was guiding it. She touched the glass. Emily rushed forward, yanking her back. "No, don't touch it." Rachel stumbled, eyes wide. "I felt something, like pressure. Someone on the other side." Emily's heart pounded. That's how it starts. The mirror shivered. A ripple passed across the glass. Both women froze. Rachel whispered, "Did you see that?" Emily grabbed her arm. "We're leaving now." They bolted from the room, slamming the door behind them. Emily locked it, though she knew a lock meant nothing to whatever was inside. Hours passed. The two of them huddled in the living room, lights blazing, whispering plans. Should they smash it? Burn the place down? Call the police? At 3 a.m., Rachel finally dozed off on the couch. Emily sat awake, every nerve on fire. Then she heard it. Not scratching this time. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving across the bedroom floor. Emily's breath caught. She shook Rachel awake. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Rachel rubbed her eyes. I don't." The bedroom door creaked open. Both women turned. The mirror stood in the hallway. It had moved again, closer than before, looming just a few feet away. Its surface shimmered like dark water. Rachel clutched Emily's arm. "Oh my God, it's real." Emily's reflection inside the glass raised its hand, waving. But Emily hadn't moved. And then, in unison, dozens of pale faces pressed against the glass from behind her reflection, their mouths opening in a silent scream. Rachel screamed aloud. Stumbling backward, Emily grabbed her, pulling her toward the front door. "We have to go now." But the mirror was faster. Its surface bulged outward, rippling like a black tide. A hand shot through skeletal, dripping with shadow and clod. The air inches from Rachel's face. Emily yanked her free, slamming the door open. They tumbled into the cold night air, running barefoot across the street until they collapsed on the sidewalk, gasping. Behind them, through the apartment window, the mirror still stood, waiting, watching. The two women didn't go back inside that night. They sat in Rachel's car, engine idling, until dawn crept over the mountains. Neither spoke much. Every time Emily closed her eyes, she saw those faces pressing against the glass. Every time Rachel blinked, she felt that skeletal hand reaching for her throat. By morning, exhaustion won. They booked a cheap motel room on the edge of town. Emily insisted on keeping every light on. Rachel triple-checked the locks. It didn't matter at 3:14 a.m. The mirror followed them. Emily woke with a start, Rachel's screams tearing her from shallow sleep. Across the room, the motel's standing mirror was no longer showing their reflections. Instead, it shimmered black, and Emily's apartment mirror was staring back at them through it, impossibly, as if the two mirrors had fused into a single passage. The pale faces crowded behind Emily's reflection again, pounding the glass. Emily grabbed the motel's lamp and hurled it at the mirror. The bulb shattered, sparks flying. The glass rippled but didn't break. Rachel dragged Emily out the door. "We can't hide, Em. We need answers." By morning, they found themselves back at the Ashbury Historical Society. Daniels nearly dropped his coffee when they barged in, wild-eyed and frantic. "You saw it, didn't you?" he muttered. "I told you to leave it alone." Rachel slammed her hands on his desk. "What the hell is that thing?" Daniels hesitated, then opened a drawer. He pulled out a faded leather folder, untied the string, and spread photographs across the desk. Old black and white images. Families. In funeral clothes. Empty rooms with broken glass. Faces blurred, stretched, as if caught in mid-scream. "The mirror has been in Ashbury for over a century," Daniels said. "They called it the widow's glass. It belonged to a woman named Margaret Delacroix. After her husband died in the mines, she claimed she could still see him in the mirror. At first, people thought it was grief, but then others started seeing their own dead loved ones." Rachel leaned closer, and Daniel's voice dropped. "Anyone who kept the mirror aged rapidly. They withered, some within weeks, others simply disappeared. Town records show dozens of cases. The mirror doesn't reflect, it consumes." Emily shivered. "Consumes what?" Daniels met her eyes. "You, piece by piece." That night, back at the motel, Rachel tried to stay strong for Emily, but her hands shook when she lit another cigarette. Daniels said people disappeared. She whispered, "Do you think that's what happened to your—" She stopped herself. Emily didn't answer. She was staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, not her reflection. The other Emily, the one inside the glass. Her reflection smiled, lips curling, unnaturally wide. "Rachel," Emily whispered, backing away. "It's here." The bathroom mirror went black, hands burst through, dozens this time, clawing at the frame, at the sink, scraping the walls. A long guttural wail filled the motel room, vibrating the air like a physical force. Rachel grabbed Emily, dragging her into the parking lot. They didn't stop running until they collapsed under the buzzing neon motel sign. Emily gasped for breath, heart hammering. "We can't run anymore. It'll follow us wherever we go." Rachel swallowed hard. "Then we fight it. We find out how to destroy it." Emily shook her head. "Daniels said it's been here for 100 years. If it could be destroyed, don't you think someone would have done it already?" Rachel's voice cracked with determination. "Then we'll be the first." Behind them, every window of the motel glowed black, as though 100 mirrors had turned their gaze outward, all watching the two women beneath the neon light. They didn't go back inside the motel. Instead, Rachel drove them through the night, the highway stretching endless under the pale beam of her headlights. Emily sat curled against the window, clutching her phone, replaying every second of that twisted reflection, smiling back at her. They stopped only when the tank hit empty, rolling into a dirt lot outside a boarded-up church. A faded sign read, St. Augustine's, established 1891. Emily stared at it, trembling. Rachel, Margaret Delacroix. Daniels said she lived around then, right? Rachel glanced at the rotting wooden doors. You think? Emily nodded. If anyone left records of what she did, they'd be here. Inside, the church smelled of dust and mold. Pews lay splintered. Stained glass windows sagged in there. Frames bent at the altar. A single iron cross stood untouched, as if time itself had refused to claim it. Rachel found the records in the basement boxes stacked high. Brittle paper, eaten at the edges by mice. Emily flipped through old sermons, funeral notices, parish letters, until one brittle envelope fell loose. Her hands shook as she read, "The widow's glass has taken another soul." Margaret swore she would reunite with her beloved, but instead, she opened a doorway. We tried fire. We tried prayers. The mirror survived. Only one thing keeps it at bay: blood willingly given. To starve it is to enrage it. To feed it is to prolong our curse. May God forgive us all. Rachel leaned over her shoulder. Blood willingly given. What the hell does that mean? Emily's voice cracked. Sacrifice. That night, they dragged the mirror from Emily's apartment back into the abandoned church. It was heavier than it had ever been before, as if the glass itself had grown bloated with the weight of countless souls. They set candles around it, drew a circle of salt from an old bag Rachel found in the basement kitchen. She poured gasoline over the frame, her hands trembling. "This is it," Rachel whispered. "We end it tonight." Emily lit a match. The flames roared to life, licking up the carved wood, curling black smoke toward the rafters. The mirror hissed, actually hissed, as if alive, but instead of cracking, instead of shattering, the glass cleared. Inside, faces pressed against the barrier, dozens, maybe hundreds, children, old men, women with hollow eyes, all clawing, screaming silently, their palms slapping the inside of the glass like desperate prisoners. Emily's knees buckled. "Rachel, it's not breaking, it's feeding." Rachel turned to her, eyes wide. "We have to give it something it wants." The glass rippled. Emily's reflection stepped forward, smiling that too wide smile again. Behind her, another shape emerged. Margaret Delacroix. Her face was pale, stretched thin across her skull, her eyes black pits that swallowed the candlelight. She raised one skeletal hand and pointed straight at Emily. Emily stumbled back. "Why me?" The voice came not from the mirror, but from inside her head. "Because you looked first. Because you never looked away." Rachel grabbed her arm. "Don't listen, we'll find another way." The flames around the mirror sputtered and died, snuffed out by an unseen wind. The salt circles scattered, as though kicked apart by invisible feet. The glass swelled outward, ballooning like a lung ready to burst. Then, with a sound like cracking ice, hands erupted through the surface, not spectral, but solid, clawing the air of the church. Emily screamed as the hands grabbed her wrists, dragging her toward the glass. Rachel threw herself forward, pulling Emily back, their arms shaking with the force of the struggle. The mirror howled, a deafening, inhuman shriek that rattled the church's rotting beams. Margaret's face pressed closer against the glass. Her voice was a hiss that filled the rafters. "One must stay. One must feed us." Rachel's grip tightened on Emily's hand. She looked at her best friend, tears streaking her ash-smeared face. "Then it won't be you." Before Emily could react, Rachel yanked free, shoving Emily back with all her strength. Then she hurled herself forward, straight into the mirror's waiting arms. Emily's scream tore through the church as Rachel vanished inside. The mirror went still, silent. Only Emily's reflection remained, and this time, she was alone. The church was silent. Too silent, Emily stood on her knees, staring at the mirror that had just swallowed Rachel whole. Its surface was flat now, calm as still water. No flames, no screams, no trace that Rachel had ever existed. Emily's sobs broke the silence. She slammed her fists against the glass, screaming Rachel's name until her throat was raw. Nothing, her own reflection, only watched her, not mocking this time, not smiling, just waiting. Emily wiped her tears with the back of her hand and whispered, "If you think I'm leaving her, you don't know me at all." She pressed her palms to the glass and pushed. It gave way instantly, swallowing her like liquid. Cold. Darkness, a pressure so suffocating it felt like her lungs would burst. Her body fell forward into black, endless air, until her knees struck stone. She coughed, gagging, gasping for breath. When she opened her eyes, she wasn't in the church anymore. She was in a vast corridor lined with mirrors on both sides, stretching endlessly. Every mirror showed something different, not her reflection, but scenes. People screaming, people clawing, people aging and fast forward, skin collapsing into bone. Emily's heart pounded. This is where it keeps them. A soft cry echoed down the hall. "Emily!" Rachel's voice. Emily spun and ran. Her footsteps slapped against the cold stone floor, breath ragged, hands brushing against the smooth surfaces of mirrors as she passed. Each one rippled at her touch, like skin. Finally, she saw her Rachel, pressed against the inside of one of the mirrors. Her hand slapped frantically against the glass. "Help me!" She screamed. "Emily, get me out!" Emily rushed forward, pressing both palms to the mirror. "I've got you. Hold on." But the reflection twisted. Rachel's face sagged, her skin shriveling as if rotting in fast motion. Her hair bleached to white. Her mouth stretched into a soundless howl. Emily stumbled back, horrified. It wasn't Rachel, it was the mirror pretending. A low laugh filled the corridor, echoing from everywhere at once. Margaret Delacroix stepped into view, not from one mirror, but from all of them. Her hollow-eyed reflection spread across every surface, multiplying, surrounding Emily on all sides. "You came willingly," Margaret whispered, her voice crawling beneath Emily's skin. "That makes you mine." Emily backed up, shaking her head. "Where's Rachel?" Margaret's smile widened. "With the others. But you will take my place." The mirrors shifted. One of them no longer showed strangers or horrors. It showed the church, the real world, the empty altar. In that mirror stood Emily herself, alive, breathing free. Emily staggered closer, realizing what Margaret meant. If she stayed, her reflection would live on in the real world. She would vanish here, while the version in the glass took her place. Emily's reflection turned, staring back at her with wide eyes. Then it smiled. "No," Emily whispered. "No, that's not me." But the reflection raised a hand, her hand, and placed it on the inside of the glass. The choice was clear. Either she broke free now, or Rachel was gone forever. She pulled the iron cross from her pocket, the one from the church altar. Her knuckles turned white around it. Margaret's faces leaned closer, whispering from every side, "Give yourself, give your blood. One must stay." Emily raised the cross high. Her scream split the air as she slammed it against the mirror, showing her false reflection. The glass cracked. 1,000 voices shrieked at once. The corridor shook, fractures spiderwebbing across every mirror. Faces inside began to shatter, collapsing into nothingness. Emily's reflection clawed from the inside, desperate to hold its place. Emily slammed the cross again, and again, and again. With a final ear-splitting crack, the mirror exploded. Emily was thrown backward into the black void. The last thing she heard before darkness claimed her was Rachel's scream, real, not false, echoing from somewhere deep inside the collapsing corridor. The black void consumed everything. Emily gasped, twisting in the dark, her body falling endlessly until stone, cold, unforgiving. Her head cracked against the floor, sparks of light bursting behind her eyes. She pushed herself up, dazed. The corridor of mirrors was collapsing around her, walls caving inward. glass shattering in waves like dominoes falling into infinity. "Rachel," she screamed. A voice answered, faint but real. "Emily, I'm here." Emily staggered toward the sound, weaving through falling shards that sliced at her arms and face. She hardly noticed the blood. She was too focused up ahead. Rachel was pinned inside one last mirror, her palms pressed desperately against the glass. Her eyes were wide with terror. "Please, don't leave me." Emily threw herself at the mirror, pounding with her fists. The cracks spiderwebbed, but the surface held. Behind Rachel, Emily saw Margaret's shape looming, her skeletal hands gripping Rachel's shoulders. "She belongs to me," Margaret hissed, her voice rattling. "Emily's bones." Emily lifted the iron cross again. "Then take me instead." Margaret paused. For the first time, her expression shifted, surprised, amused. Emily didn't wait. She slammed the cross into the glass with every ounce of strength she had. The mirror screamed, not Margaret, not Rachel, but the mirror itself, as though the object was alive. The glass burst outward. Emily was thrown into Rachel, the two of them colliding as the world folded in on itself. When Emily opened her eyes, she was back. The church, the altar. Rachel lay beside her, breathing hard, blood streaked across her forehead but alive. Emily reached for her. Rachel's trembling hand squeezed back. For a moment, relief washed over them. But then, the silence. They both turned. The mirror still hung on the wall, unbroken, perfect. Emily's reflection was there, Rachel's too. But something was wrong. The reflections weren't moving with them. Rachel froze. Her mirrored self tilted its head, just slightly, a movement Rachel hadn't made. Then it smiled. The smile spread, unnatural, stretching ear to ear. Every reflection in the church, in every shard of glass, every polished surface began to smile back. Emily's heart stopped. She realized the truth too late. They hadn't destroyed the mirror. They had only set it free. That night, parishioners found the church empty. No Emily, no Rachel, just the mirror, and in it, two women pounding on the glass, screaming soundlessly, begging to be let out. On the streets of Boston, people reported glimpsing a woman at night, pale, with wild eyes, sitting before discarded mirrors, staring at herself for hours, whispering to the reflection as though it might answer. No one who approached her ever returned.